Our water's turned off, honey. You haven't paid the bill yet, have you?
Oh shit, the bill.
This is literally the second time I asked you to pay. Did you really arrange for a direct debit? I said doubtfully. I expected the usual apologetic voice that would promise me he would deposit the money that very day, but instead, my husband yelled back at me in a very angry tone.
I'm in the middle of frickin' depositing money, alright? I'm hanging up now.
My name is Jasmine, and I'm a 36-year-old housewife. I have a husband whose name is Trent, and we also have a beautiful daughter, Amelia, and we were living very happily together. I first met Trent at my job, which was a telephone receptionist and sort of accountant for a certain moving company. Most of my job consisted of answering FAQs to customers who called headquarters, and therefore I didn't have much contact with personnel from the Department of Sales, where Trent works. It was a busy workplace, but company trips and other kinds of social events were often held. We began to talk with each other from time to time, and in the process, we gradually became close friends.
Jasmine, I want you to be together with me on the premise of marriage.
Only if you're alright with it being someone the likes of me. I retired after I got married. After that, I bore our daughter. We used to live in company accommodation, but as our daughter started to grow up, we thought our home was becoming increasingly small and crowded. Now that Amelia's getting older and bigger, I think it's about time we start looking for a place where there's more room for all of us. What do you think?
Yeah, I guess we should, but, what cost?
I do have an account with some amount of savings in it. Why don't we use it jointly, as husband and wife? Let's just promise each other we'll do our best to economize, and we'll save up some more as time goes on.
And I'll arrange for my salary to be put into that account. That way your savings won't be affected too much, will they? What do you think?
I think that's a great idea. So, right when my daughter was beginning middle school, we moved into a bigger, newer rental apartment. We had more room, and my daughter got her own personal room she always wanted. It's further from my husband's work, and it was because of that whenever he had to work overtime, he only came home until much after conventional times. On weekends, due to some company business, he often had to stay up late, and that would also persist well into the night. This led him to staying at the business hotel overnight, and that posed a concerning problem. Although these stays overnight were for the purpose of business, I was getting worried about the cost for entertainment. There was the rent for the apartment to worry about, not to mention the house utilities such as water, electricity, and gas. I grew increasingly worried and unsure about whether we had enough money saved up to afford it all. Such was my life for about 2 months, when one day, the electricity and gas were suddenly cut off. I was so surprised and concerned, I called my husband immediately. Hey, listen, I think we're in trouble, honey. We can't get power to the house. The gas isn't working either.
Oh, damn it, I forgot about all that. I hadn't deposited the money yet.
My husband seemed to have forgotten to pay the bills for our electricity and gas. I got the deposit information from him, found out where to transfer the money, and paid them as soon as I could. Mere minutes after, the electricity and gas came back, and I thought the worst was over. I was relieved this happened while my daughter was at school. I was horrified when I considered the possibility that this could have been at night. That day, I rushed to prepare dinner before welcoming Amelia home from school, as usual. Later that night, Trent came home and I asked him about what I'd called him about that day. How could they cut off our electricity and gas? I don't think you understand how much of a big deal that is. I don't think something that serious could ever be the result of merely forgetting to deposit the bills. There has to be some other reason. Would you know of something?
Oh yeah, I think I do. I got an urgent letter reminding me to pay the bills, but what with work being so busy these days and all, I forgot all about it.
An urgent letter? You know you can't just leave it like that. Perhaps getting scolded by his wife made something inside Trent snap, because his tone suddenly changed into one of frustration. My eyes widened at the sheer aggression he displayed with that voice of his.
God damn, Jasmine. Depositing the money's clearly a pain in the ass for me. Why don't you transfer the money yourself? You do realize I'm not at home because I'm working, right? You're the one who's home all day, and you have all the time in the world to be doing something simple like this. You should be depositing the money, period.
You're home all day, and you have all the time in the world. What's with that attitude, Mr. Mitchell? You make it sound like the only thing I do at home is fun and games. Taking care of the home and raising a child is anything but fun and games, Trent. I'm single-handedly taking care of the house and Amelia.
I know it was hard when Amelia was little, honey. But now that she's a lot bigger now and is in middle school, why don't you go out, try to find a job too?
But such a suggestion? So sudden? I don't know if... But as I thought about it more and more, it became more obvious that our family budget was managed by my husband. He's the one who paid all the bills, and I realized I've always left it to him, which isn't exactly healthy for a family relationship. I could see why he might feel burdened. It was a perfectly understandable reason to feel stressed. I came to the conclusion he was absolutely right.
I'm working as I shoulder the responsibility of taking care of all the payments that need to be done, you know. I don't appreciate the complaining at all.
You're right, Trent. You're working and doing your best to pay the bills and sustain the family.
So you finally understand, huh? This is exactly why housewives don't know anything about society.
I'm going to find a job. I'm going to help you out with providing enough for the family.
Wait, what?
A couple days later, I already began my part-time job, which was a part-time administration receptionist at my husband's workplace, where I used to work myself when I first met him. That meant that he and I were back working together for the same company, but he didn't seem to be too enthusiastic about that.
You know you don't have to work for the same company as me, right? I'm sure there are other jobs that would love to hire you, like the supermarket near our apartment.
You say many places would love to hire me, but I wouldn't be too sure. I have the most experience in customer reception. And at supermarkets, you need a whole different set of skills to be hired in the first place, let alone do well at your job. I've been with this company for a long time before. That's precisely why they hired me back.
However, I just don't know. It's a busy company.
You're the one who told me to work. Is there something wrong with me being here?
No, absolutely not. If you're not in the same department as me, I don't mind one bit.
Amelia supported me when I made the decision to start working again. You're going to start working again, Mom. That's so awesome. Thank you, sweetheart. I'm gonna do great, just you see, okay? I know you will. And I'll do my part to take care of myself whenever I can. I'll do my best to help you out, Mom. Because of my decision to start working again, I think it's given my daughter an opportunity to awaken her sense of independence. The company had a lot of things changed over the years, and I had somewhat of a hard time relearning how to do my job. But as I gradually memorized the work and started showing progress, I started to enjoy it once again. And then my first payday came. I felt so happy and proud of myself that I was now a member of society. I went to see if my paycheck had been deposited in the joint account Trent and I had agreed to create, but try as I might, I couldn't find the bank book. It wasn't where I usually kept it, nor was it in any of the places we stored any important documents and administration papers. I called Trent and asked him if he'd seen it. His response was that he took it out to transfer the utility bills to the associating companies.
You're gonna be busy with work too. I thought doing the deposits myself would be more convenient.
Yeah, that would be convenient, for real. Well, thanks, honey. I appreciate it.
I'll take care of it when I'm on break, okay? I'll hold on to that bank book for you for a while, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. Thanks again. Get it done as soon as you can, honey, okay? I wanted to see my paycheck reflected in the bank book, so I was a little disappointed. But it was nice of Trent to shoulder the work of depositing the bills. Around that time, a new female boss moved into the department where I worked. Nice to meet you. I'm Liz Percival, the new section chief. I consider part-time employees to be in the same position as full-time employees. I promise the work will be evenly distributed among all personnel. I hope we get along famously and work together to bring this company to greatness. 80% of the reception staff were part-timers. She insisted that we, the part-time staff, should be treated the same way as all other full-time employees. While that may sound like something awesome for me, the reality was far from what one would expect. Suddenly, part-timers were given enough work that would take them to overtime. One couldn't even ask for some time off. Hey, you there. You have to stay here today and take care of this work. Then you can go home, okay? It was so inconvenient for anyone who worked part-time to be treated this way, and many staff struggled to meet Miss Percival's demands. I have to pick up my son from daycare today. I can't do any extra work on such short notice, Chief Percival. To those who adamantly refused to cooperate because they simply couldn't, Miss Percival became extremely insistent and said things that made them feel guilty. Why don't you ask someone else to go pick him up instead? That's not the way an adult handles work as a functioning member of society. Do you have any idea how much more work it's going to be for us full-timers because of negligent part-timers like you? I couldn't take it anymore, and I offered a solution. Excuse me, I'll do that extra work for you. You go pick up your son from daycare, Dana. I'm only talking to her, Mitchell. This is none of your business. You're just being too much of a nosybody when you should be focusing on your job. But someone has to do it anyway, and Dana here simply cannot. I'm giving the orders around here. You're just a part-timer, and you're always getting in people's way. Section Chief Percival always showed a very respectful attitude and tone toward me. I hadn't the slightest idea why she hated me so much. Even during this time, she would ramble on and on and on about how I was an obstacle to more important members of the company, which of course caused me to get distracted, and I couldn't get my job done. And all the part-timers were never paid for all those hours of working overtime. It didn't take long for us all to become exhausted. I thought that none of us could go on like this, so, on behalf of everyone else, I gave my opinion to Chief Percival. A moment, please, Chief. I think fairness is a good thing in a company. So, building on that, may I suggest that you please issue a formal overtime order as Section Chief. This will not be reflected in overtime hours, and it will also affect our payments. The reason there is still work left to be done is only because of your own incompetence, Miss Mitchell. I'm not telling you that you need to work overtime. I'm only stating that there mustn't be any work left unfinished. But still, right when our shifts are about to end, you pile on the assignments like there's no tomorrow. No one could manage to finish it all without going overtime. You see, it's your own fault that you don't even realize how much work you have left to do before you're leaving for home. You should be thanking me, since I'm the only one who's generous enough to point that out to you part-timers. All of you are so lazy and so useless. It's disgusting. I'd noticed that she's even giving us her own assignments just so she could slack off on her job and make easy money. But I decided against saying anything about it. It would only make the situation worse. I backed off on that occasion. But eventually, some people quit their jobs because of her hot-headedness and her arrogance. That in turn snowballed it into me having to do more work every day, and days when I came home late became ever more frequent. Moreover, Percival decked herself out in her holiday attire on days she gave me even more work. She would leave the office on time. She was a really infuriating boss. One day, I didn't even have the time to withdraw any money from our joint bank account. I was out shopping and I didn't have enough cash to pay for any groceries. I had no choice but to resort to a cup of noodles for dinner for everyone that night. I felt so sorry for my daughter. I'm so sorry, Amelia, honey. It's okay, Mom. I like these noodles. I can't believe I've been at work this long. I was so naive, wasn't I? Hey, Mom, if you don't have time to withdraw liquid cash from your joint account, why don't you use electronic money or something? Huh? But I just started working. I can't even have my own credit card yet. No. Oh, Mom, you're so funny. I'm talking about a payment service on a banking app. What? How do you know about this, honey? Amelia had an air like she was a master at this. I learned it in class last week. These days, education about electronic money is pretty much mandatory, you know. It isn't, but it's pretty mainstream. I was surprised at the level of schooling the children of today were receiving. Per my daughter's suggestion, I applied for an electronic service online. Since it can also come with a mobile payment service, I didn't have to take the time to withdraw cash at the bank anymore. Moreover, you could see all the money going in and coming out of your account on your phone. That meant I never needed a bank book again. Now I can still get some groceries after I work overtime. I still hadn't seen proof of my paycheck deposited into our joint account, so when I saw the screen of my new online account, I was so happy to find that a decent amount had been deposited from the company I work for. However, my joy was extremely short-lived. I looked at the balance of our joint account, and I was surprised to discover it had decreased considerably. My savings from my bachelor days were darn near level zilch. I was stunned. I looked at the details, and I began to notice something suspicious. Some unusual withdrawals from the account were frequently seen when the electricity was supposed to be paid, which I found they weren't. The frequency of these withdrawals only increased as the date approached the present, and the amount of money missing from the account only increased accordingly. Now I understood why my husband never gave me back the bank book. I quickly asked him about it. Hey, can I talk to you for a second? I need to know something.
What do you want? I'm freaking tired. Come on now, out with it.
It's about our joint bank account. When I started talking, Trent's expression stiffened.
Our joint account. Yeah, the bank book. I don't have it with me right now.
I know my balance is going down, even though I don't have the bank book, Trent. What the hell are you spending all that money on?
Business stuff, of course.
But still, you're spending too much. You've even used up the amount I initially saved up, you know.
There's just a lot of things that have to be dealt with these days, alright? None of your damn business.
He was so pissed, and the conversation was clearly going nowhere. I was nowhere satisfied with the answers he provided me, so I took the liberty to look up the name of the enterprise that was withdrawing a bunch of money. It was called Mademoiselle, and it turned out it was a high-end woman's accessory enterprise. And I didn't have any jewelry from that company whatsoever. That could only mean one thing. He's buying fine jewelry for someone else, and he's been using my savings to pay for it all. Needless to say, I was furious. I thought about wringing Trent's neck with my own hands. But I first needed proof of a love affair. I hired a detective agency to investigate the possibility of an affair on Trent's part, without him knowing about it. But my husband was very cautious, and I couldn't find any evidence of an affair for a while. The agency informed me a couple days later that at the current rate at which the evidence was rolling in, it would take about a month to gather enough to make an official verdict. In the midst of all this, I got a call from my daughter while I was at work. She informed me that the water had been shut off. Hey, Mom, there's no water coming out of the tap. I was so surprised. I went to check with my husband, who was also working. I pretended to go to the bathroom to sneak past Percival's eagle eye. Fortunately, she was so engrossed in using the phone that she didn't even notice me cautiously walking by her office. So, listen, I love this new necklace that the branch downtown's just begun selling, you see. I thought it was literally the only thing that would ever look good on me. I was absolutely dumbstruck by the sheer stupidity of the contents of her phone call. I cautiously left the room. At the end of the emergency staircase, I took out my phone to call my husband. And that's when I heard a familiar voice.
Accessories from Mademoiselle again. Really are pretty upscale, aren't you? Yep, alright. Better look forward to it, okay?
That voice belonged to my husband. Mademoiselle was the name of that same upscale accessories store I researched online. I had no clue if that was a coincidence, but it seemed the contents of his phone call were strangely similar to what Percival had been saying on the phone when I passed her office earlier. I quietly waited in the staircase. After a few minutes, I called my husband.
What the hell do you want? I'm working.
Amelia just called to tell me that our water is cut off, honey. You haven't paid the bill yet, have you?
Oh, shit, the bill.
This is literally the second time I asked you to pay. Did you really arrange for a direct debit? I said doubtfully. I expected the usual apologetic voice that would promise me he would deposit the money that very day. But instead, my husband yelled back at me in a very angry tone.
I'm in the middle of frickin' depositing the money, alright? I'm hanging up now.
This is the second time he's done something like this, forgetting to pay important bills. Last time was electricity and gas. This stupid idiot. What in the world does he think of home, of family? I called the Waterworks Bureau to confirm the deposits, and what they responded was truly unbelievable. For the past 2 months, we haven't received any deposits from your account, madam. We've even sent you a reminder. Can you confirm it was rightfully delivered to your address? My husband should have deposited the money earlier today, and yes, I can confirm we've received a reminder, but I believe my husband took care of everything. Unfortunately, madam, we cannot confirm that a single cent has been deposited. I hurriedly made a transfer through my online bank. Not too long thereafter, Amelia called me again, telling me that, quote, the water came back. I was so relieved. I returned to my seat with a nonchalant look on my face. I went on with my work. I felt Percival glaring in my direction. She was giving me a disdainful look as she fiddled her gaudy earrings with her manicured fingers. The earrings were probably from a high-end accessory store, perhaps bought and paid for by a special someone. I had never understood why she was so hostile towards me, but now it makes sense. My woman's intuition was crystal clear, containing not even a puff cloud of doubt. My husband, Trent Mitchell, was having an affair with Liz Percival. I called the detective agency. Sorry to bother you, but this is about my husband's potential affair. I have a very good idea who his partner could be. After that, the investigation went a lot more smoothly as evidence started pouring in at an alarming rate. And just as I had predicted, their affair was confirmed. With this evidence in my hands, I thought I'd give them both a good lesson to remember. I got in touch with a certain someone. Later on, near the end of my working hours that day, just as I expected, Percival came to me and said, "You haven't finished your work yet today. What do you think you're doing? You're not leaving, are you?" "My work for today is finished, Chief Percival." "No, it isn't. Have you missed this particular voucher?" "But this isn't my job to finish, now is it, Chief Percival? I believe it was yours all along." My, you're quite cocky for someone who can do only a single tiny job as well as me. "I'll do the job, only if you issue a formal overtime order as section chief. I will otherwise not be paid for working overtime." These dignified words of mine left the room dead silent. The other part-timers made a small gesture of applause. Percival's mouth was agape, much like that of a dying fish. I can only assume she never expected my counterattack. And then she let out a piercing scream, as though I'd just stabbed her with a knife. "You're freaking fired! My husband is the executive director of this company, and I'm gonna make sure your goody two-shoes little bitch ass will be fired to hell." And with that, she stormed out of the room. I immediately called that same certain someone. She's just left the building, sir. I believe she's on her way to the store I told you about. 2 hours later, I stood in wait in front of a high-end jewelry store. I awaited the entrance of a certain man and woman, together, their arms intertwined, the woman beaming with pride at her newest purchase of materialistic stupidity. The man was, of course, my husband, Trent, and the woman was one Miss Liz Percival. On her wrist was a shopping bag, perhaps containing the accessories she had wanted. The two of them saw me standing in front of them, and their eyes widened.
What are you doing here, Jasmine?
You're supposed to be working late tonight. I smiled at them both. I just thought I'd demand for the unpaid overtime payments. Oh, my apologies, I misspoke. I wanted to demand compensation for your affair.
Stop this. You don't understand. This isn't what it looks like.
Yes, sweetie. This is just a big misunderstanding. They started making excuses for themselves when another person appeared in front of them.
Oh, Mr. Executive Director, sir.
Darling?
So, you were willing to take measures this drastic to go shopping for useless pieces of jewelry?
Trent and Percival understood they were busted and slumped to the ground as a trembling mass of lying, cheating nerves. A couple of days later, I divorced my husband. I demanded a good sum of alimony and child support for our daughter. As for his lover, Executive Director Percival was so generous as to pay the alimony on her behalf in a lump sum. He later told me what he had thought about the situation with his wife.
I was shocked to hear about my wife's infidelity from you, I must be honest. Compared to what you've been through, I could only say I'm so ashamed, and that I hope you can accept my sincerest apologies.
Not at all, sir. You did nothing wrong whatsoever, sir, I assure you.
No, you don't understand. My wife is actually a terrible spendthrift. I've been trying to get her to change by landing her a job here in the company. I tried to give her some decent sense of money. I stopped all the credit cards too, but I didn't think she'd use a cheating lover as leverage to pay for the things she wanted.
My husband apparently had no idea he was being treated like a slave. She was only together with him to satisfy her insatiable lust for materialism. After the whole situation, Trent was transferred to a branch in the countryside, and he's continuing to work to pay the alimony and child support. His lover, too, suffered a file for divorce from Executive Manager Percival, and as of now, she lives and works in a factory in a rural area to pay off her alimony debt. With her gone, my workplace instantly became friendlier. I got in touch with some of the part-timers who quit, told them what had happened, and asked them to come back, all of whom obliged enthusiastically. We're not short-staffed anymore, and we've been able to work more efficiently. The newly appointed supervisor is a serious guy with lots more common sense and logic. And he generously recommended me for a permanent full-time position. The divorce was an unfortunate event, but the silver lining is that I was able to become independent because of it. I will continue to do my best in everything, from work to caring for the house to raising my teenage daughter, and I vow to make sure Amelia never has any problems as we continue to live a nice, healthy, happy life.